On the evening of Friday, November 13th, 2015, people across Paris were doing what Parisians do best, gathering with friends at cozy cafés, enjoying live music, cheering at a football match, or simply walking home under the soft glow of street lamps. It was an ordinary night in one of the world's most beloved cities. But by midnight, that ordinary night had become one of the darkest chapters in modern European history. That night, coordinated terrorist attacks struck multiple locations across Paris, carried out by operatives linked to the Islamic State, also known as ISIS. In just under 2 hours, 130 innocent people from more than a dozen countries lost their lives. Over 400 others were injured, many critically. It remains the deadliest act of terrorism on French soil since World War II. The attacks began shortly after 9:20 p.m. Gunmen armed with assault rifles opened fire on crowded terraces along Rue Bichat and Rue de la Fontaine au Roi in the 10th and 11th arrondissements. At La Belle Équipe, a popular bar, dozens were shot as they shared drinks and conversation. At Le Carillon and Le Petit Cambodge, people dining or waiting for friends were targeted without warning. Within minutes, streets that had been filled with laughter were scenes of chaos and horror. At nearly the same time, a suicide bomber detonated his explosive vest outside the Stade de France in Saint-Denis, where French President François Hollande was attending a friendly football match between France and Germany. 2 additional bombers struck nearby, but their devices either failed or caused fewer casualties. Inside the stadium, fans were unaware of the full scale of the unfolding tragedy. Many thought the blasts were firecrackers, but the most devastating attack took place at the Bataclan concert hall. Around 9:40 p.m., 3 gunmen stormed the venue during a performance by the American rock band Eagles of Death Metal. They took hostages, fired indiscriminately into the crowd, and held concert-goers captive for nearly 2 hours. When French police launched a tactical assault, 90 people had already been killed inside the theatre, many of them young, in their 20s and 30s, attending what should have been a night of joy and music. In the days that followed, the world watched as French authorities launched one of the largest counter-terrorism operations in the country's history. The suspected mastermind, Abdelhamid Abaoud, a Belgian national with ties to ISIS, was killed during a police raid in the Paris suburb of Saint-Denis on November 18th. Investigators discovered that most of the attackers were European citizens who had traveled to Syria, received training, and returned using false documents or by slipping through intelligence gaps. The attacks exposed serious vulnerabilities in European border controls and intelligence coordination. They also triggered a state of emergency in France that lasted for 2 years, the longest in the country's modern history. Nationwide, security measures at public venues were dramatically increased, and debates intensified over the balance between civil liberties and national security. But beyond politics and policy, the heart of this tragedy lies in the individual lives lost. There was Nick Alexander, a 36-year-old British merchandise manager for the band, killed while selling T-shirts outside the Bataclan. There was Manuel Dias, a Portuguese father of 2, shot at La Belle Équipe. There was Valentin, a 23-year-old student, enjoying his first Eagles of Death Metal concert, gone before his family even knew he'd been there. Survivors have spent years processing the trauma. Some, like Arthur Deloy, the Bataclan's stage manager, who helped dozens escape through backstage tunnels, have become advocates for peace and remembrance. Others carry invisible wounds that may never fully heal. Yet amid the grief, Paris showed extraordinary resilience. Within days, citizens left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes at every attack site. Je suis Paris became a global rallying cry, echoing the solidarity shown after the Charlie Hebdo attacks just 10 months earlier. Cities around the world lit landmarks in the colors of the French flag. In music venues from Berlin to New York, audiences observed moments of silence or played French songs in tribute. The Bataclan reopened a year later with a performance by British singer Sting. In his opening words, he said, "We stand together in defiance of terror and in celebration of life." That spirit of defiance, unity, and humanity remains the most powerful response to hatred. Today, memorials stand quietly in Paris, plaques at café doorways, engraved names at the Bataclan, and a serene garden near the stadium. These are not just markers of loss, but reminders that terror seeks to divide, but communities can choose to unite. As we remember November 13th, 2015, we honor not only those who died, but also the courage of first responders, the kindness of strangers who sheltered the fleeing, and the quiet dignity of a city that refused to be defined by fear. Let us never forget their names, let us never forget their stories, and let us never stop building a world where such violence has no place. In memory of the 130 victims of the November 13th, 2015 Paris attacks. Subscribe for thoughtful historical storytelling. Leave a comment below to share how you remember this day with respect and compassion.